Hello. I know a lot of people might think I was like pushing it to the very last minute. Well, I did that actually deliberately because normally with my live streams, I will run them a particular way. And what I wanted to do was give people enough time to get into this live stream and also for a number of my regulars to be in the room to help me with this particular live stream. So that's why I left it so long. Okay, so now you will find the start time for this video down in the description. I'll put it down there once YouTube publishes the video. Now normally what I do is I present everything first and then I open it up for questions and answers. You'll let me know if there's any problems with the sound. I'm going to do the same format. There's only one difference to the format that I'm running for today for this Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. And that is, if there's anybody in the live stream right now who is a regular, who knows me fairly well in terms of, being part of my live streams, if you have played the Lost Mine of Phandelver, or should I say run as a Dungeon Master, the Lost Mine of Phandelver, Dear Jesus, I can see that Dear Jesus is in the room right now. What I would like you to do, if you are here, is anybody who's been a Dungeon Master and run this adventure before and knows what it's like to be running the adventure for the very first time, running the first session, I'm going to do my presentation, but I'm going to check back with the chat. What I want you to do is type into the live chat anything that is related. Don't worry about anybody who's new, that's all right. But anybody who is not new, I want you to type into the live chat all of the curly questions your players asked you or tried to present you, or things they tried to do in the adventure that caused you some issues or that you had to deal with. And I will put those or incorporate those into the actual live stream as part of my presentation. So I'm hoping that Dear Jesus, I know he's certainly been part of that process. So anybody else who has actually been a Dungeon Master, run the very first session, and they had a few questions or issues with their players that they needed to resolve, you are going to let me know, and we're going to go from there. So I will check back with the live chat. Okay, so it is time. There's a lot of people in the room. It's time to get on with these things, and hopefully people will actually play along with me for today. Okay, presentation time. Let's go. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And today this is a Dungeon Master Guide for the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And for those of you who are players, if you are playing in this adventure, this is the wrong video for you, because I'm going to be talking about stuff that has spoilers in it. So I suggest that you go and watch a different video, and when you've played through the Lost Mine of Phandelver, you can come back. I know your Dungeon Master would not be happy if you were hanging out and basically sort of checking out all the information they might want to know before they actually start playing. So don't spoil anything, just go and watch a different video. Okay, for Dungeon Masters who are new, I'm going to essentially present you with what I would do in my first session and how I would break it down. I thought I had covered everything that I needed to cover in a video called Goblin Arrows Part 1. And apparently I did not cover enough, and so therefore I'm doing this video. And I'm going to do my very best to make sure that everything works out well. Certainly hope so anyway. Okay, so let's get it started. So at this point, when you're running your very first session, you should have had a session 0. Your players should have made sure all of their characters know each other. And I mean, you can do that in a tavern, you can do that in any way. All the links should have been built into the character at this point. They should have a really good understanding and knowledge. They should have a good relationship with Gundren Rockseeker. They should actually know quite a bit about Gundren Rockseeker. I've done a video on the topic, so you're welcome to go and check that out if you want to. They should also know a little bit about Gundren Rockseeker's escort, Sildar Hallwinter. Should know a little bit about that particular character as well. Now, you'll notice on page 3, there's a section on making a skill check or an ability check, and it states easy is a DC 10, moderate is a DC 15, and hard is a DC 20. This is just a sort of a broad stroke to give you an idea of what you're dealing with. The presentation for this adventure is not built around just rolling dice. So lots of description is always good. You'll notice on page 6 there's a section on backgrounds. You don't read out the background information to the player. Okay, all the players shouldn't really know all that information. That there is for you as a dungeon master, and you drop in that information when you see fit. The overview for the adventure, you don't read out any of that information to the players' characters. So none of the characters or the players, should I say, should know about that. What they know is that they are going to be escorts for a wagon load of mining supplies that's travelling from Neverwinter to Phandelver. That's really the gist of it. What is likely to happen when you get to this point is you'll probably find that there's going to be a few questions. People are going to ask a few questions, and quite often they'll want to know a little bit more information about Neverwinter. So by all means, you can pluck out little bits of information for Neverwinter. Now, there's not a lot of information you'll notice on Neverwinter in the actual adventure. In fact, there's very, very little. So you might have to do a little bit of research. My suggestion to you is, if you get them to make a knowledge check, you could make them make an intelligence check, or something like a history check would be sort of sensible. And a DC 10 would probably mean that you know, like one piece of information, basic information. Moderate, you know, like 2 pieces of information, that's a DC 15. And then hard, maybe 3 pieces of information, that's a DC 20. And you can just pluck that information either from the book or just from the internet. Now, Neverwinter, they're probably going to ask about Neverwinter. They may well ask about Phandelver. There is a little bit of information on page 3 in the backgrounds around Phandelver. And I've talked about Phandelver a little bit already in some of my other videos. So use that as a guide. As for Gundren Rockseeker, they shouldn't have to make a knowledge check about Gundren Rockseeker. They should be close friends, so don't worry about that sort of thing. As for Sildar Hallwinter, certainly they should have a reasonable relationship. It won't be a particularly long relationship with Sildar Hallwinter, so don't worry about that too much. Okay, so now we're moving on to where we actually have to start sort of reading off the page. Now, I know a lot of people, when they see box text, they say you should not read from the page. That's a bad thing. I'm going to say nonsense. It's perfectly fine. Read from the page. That's all right. And I recommend anybody who is going to be running the very first session of their adventure, make sure you have a look at the video that I did on part 1 Goblin Arrows 2, because it's got some pretty good advice as well. Now, with that box text, you can paraphrase it. You can read it directly from the book. That's fine. That's on page 6. But I would suggest that you break it up into at least a couple of chunks. 2 chunks is good. Maybe even more chunks, you know, divided up. What this does is it allows the players to actually respond and use their characters to ask questions, and also give you time to breathe, but also decide to do things. They might want to do stuff or arrange things. Before they leave on their journey, before they start traveling, you might well find that they want to buy some goods, some equipment before they leave on their journey. And there's probably no reason why they can't do something like that. So by all means, allow them time to do that. I would allow them anything out of the player's handbook. They won't have a lot of money to start off with, so don't worry too much about all of that sort of thing. Okay, now I'm going to read the section that I would read first from the book, and then what I'm going to do is, look, divide it up. That's the key to this, right? Divide it up. In the city of Neverwinter, a dwarf named Gundren Rockseeker asks you to bring a wagon load of provisions to the rough and tumble settlement of Phandelver, a couple of days' travel southeast of the city. Now, when they talk about Gundren Rockseeker, it sounds like that you don't know Gundren Rockseeker, but the book does encourage you to make sure that you have a good, strong connection between each other as characters and with Gundren Rockseeker. So you should not be a relationship where all there is a transaction of money. I've said this before. Gundren was clearly excited and more than a little secretive about his reasons for the trip, saying only that he and his brothers had found something big, that he'd pay 10 gold pieces each for escorting his supplies safely to Barthen's Provisions, a trading post in Phandelver. That's where I would stop before you start reading the next section. because the next section starts talking about what Gundren Rockseeker does. Allow the players an opportunity to have a discussion with him about how they should travel and when they should travel. Chances are they won't want Gundren Rockseeker to leave on his own, even if he takes Sildar Hallwinter with them. The two of them on the road, that sounds dangerous, right? They'll want Gundren Rockseeker and Sildar Hallwinter with them and the wagon, but the wagon's not ready yet. And they can ask about the wagon. There's information on page 6 that sort of states specifically the types of contents that you can find in the wagon. It's mostly food supplies and mining supplies, so such things as sacks of flour, several casks of salted pork, kegs of strong ale, shovels, picks, crowbars, stuff like that. You know, all of that. Basically, the cargo's worth about 100 gold pieces, and that's stated on page 6. So if they ask you what is involved in the load, that's where that information is. It's being pulled by 2 oxen. It's very, very simple. Nice and simple. Okay, so then once they've had an opportunity to ask questions and sort of make some knowledge checks about Neverwinter, the location at Phandelver, and anything else, okay, use those DCs that I was talking about to build that in. Then read the next section. The following day, he then set out ahead of you on horse, along with a warrior escort named Sildar Hallwinter, claiming he needed to arrive early to take care of business. Now, the section there that I'm reading out is more about, okay, so the reason he's gone, you might have wanted him to stay, but he still leaves because you need him to jump ahead of the group for the adventure to play out the way that it's sort of been planned. Otherwise, it gets a bit complicated. So that's his rationale. He might have agreed to stay, but what he actually does is something else. Now, that will frustrate the players, certainly those who are veterans. Those who are new may live with that particular scenario. It's probably the weakest part of this adventure in terms of how it plays out. You've spent the last few days following the high road. So they're now on travelling the high road south from Neverwinter, and you've recently veered east along Tribor Trail. You've encountered no trouble so far, but you know that there can be trouble on the trail as you go. Bandits and outlaws have been known to lurk along the trail. So that's where we are. Make sure that when you are setting up the players for the situation which they're coming into a trap, that you discuss with them their marching order. It does actually state in a bullet point, what is their marching order? Where are they positioned? Are they on the wagon? Are they beside the wagon? Are they deciding to ride on the oxen? Did they bring their own horse? Are they riding a mule or something like that? You decide that, and then they're going to come across the first encounter, which is basically a bunch of dead horses. Now, you can pluck maps for this from anywhere pretty much if you want to. There's something that you really want to play into. And this is where your next section comes up, okay? And you're riding in the wagon. Now, you've been on the Tribor Trail for about half a day. As you come around the bend, you spot 2 dead horses, sprawled about 50 feet ahead of you, blocking the path. Each has several black feathers, or feathered arrows, sticking out of it. The woods press close to the trail here, with a steep embankment and dense thickets on either side. Now, this is really an opportunity for the Dungeon Master to set an ambush. Ambushes are really bad when you're starting out at low level. They always cause all sorts of problems. Therefore, I totally understand if you do not want that sort of situation to arise, but that's really what the situation's working towards. It's working towards a combat, a battle between the group and the hidden goblins that are in the bushes. I've already done a video on that particular part. What I want to do instead is talk about some of the other aspects to the lead up to this, because it isn't actually very difficult to do. All you need to do is just read from the box text, break it into sections, give it a pause, and allow players an opportunity to respond. It's as simple as that. It's not hugely difficult. What I would say to you is when you're running your first session, and I've said this many times for lots of different Dungeon Masters, particularly ones who are new, you've got to do something to relax, okay? Your first session seems like a huge hurdle because you've never done it before. It was the same for me. It was the same for everybody else. So I don't care. If you need to have a beer or a wine or whatever, then that'll help you relax, great. If you need to listen to some music that will help you, then awesome, do that as well. My suggestion to you is find the thing that helps you relax. And I have just run the first part of your first session. That's exactly how it's going to pretty much look. You do not have to be as good as Matthew Mercer or Chris Perkins when you're running your first session. Okay, that's really not necessarily whatsoever. Don't worry about that sort of stuff. You do not have to talk in an accent. You do not need to go and start talking in a funny voice or change your voice in some way. What's going to likely happen is make sure you have a glass of water close by, because you're going to get dry real fast. You're going to wind up talking far too much like I am right now. And if you start doing odd voices with your voice box, you're going to strain it and you're going to wind up getting sore and tired really quickly. So don't do anything like that. It's really best to keep things completely simple. Otherwise, you'll wind up with a whole lot of headaches. Now, a lot of people will think, okay, so do I need to adjust the first encounter or the situation that they're coming into if I have more than, say, 4 players? Because it seems to be set up for 4 to 5 players. Do I need to change the structure of the monsters? No, don't. Don't do that. It's the first encounter. Your chances are you're dealing with new players, you're a new dungeon master. Don't do anything like that. Leave it as it is. It's much harder than you might realize. Okay, Eli Wild, thank you for the super chat. Question: can we just go back to where we came from after the goblin encounter? Yes, absolutely. You certainly could do something like that. They don't need, once the goblin encounter takes place, they could pursue Gundren Rockseeker and try and find him and Sildar Hallwinter. They could take the wagon to Phandelver, or they could turn back and go to Neverwinter and decide, well, they're not happy with that. That will really pretty much shut down your adventure, but certainly I wouldn't stop players from doing that. What you will need to do is explain to them once they make that decision that what you've done is really taken the story in a different direction, and I might need a bit of time to figure out what to do. So if you need to call a break while you figure out what you're going to do next, then by all means do that. Now, I know a lot of people get worried about the Goblin Arrows encounter, the very first one. Look, don't roll with advantage with your goblins. They're going to be hidden. Don't roll with advantage. They can't see them. If you roll with advantage, it's going to play out really badly. I could do a session and show you how bad it would be, but I don't think it's really necessary. If you find that, no, I really want to play it as the rules are written, I want to use advantage when my goblins are hidden and can't be seen, because that seems like the most sensible thing to do, then by all means, do it. But just remember, when the party gets completely wiped out or destroyed, my suggestion to you is just let them play the same characters. Somebody comes along, picks up the bodies, takes them back, could be the Lord's Alliance, and then brings them back to life, rather than have them make new characters. That would just really suck. As a player, I wouldn't really enjoy something like that, particularly if it's my very first game. And I've heard of many horror stories where the new players for the very first time are completely wiped out utterly in the very first encounter. So if you're going to play that out, I wouldn't be too hard and harsh about you have to have a new character to play the game. Okay, so I've covered pretty much all of the things that I really needed to cover for this particular session. I'm hoping that for most of you it was useful in some way. If you have any questions, that's what the comments section's for. I have a huge number of videos on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. You're welcome to go and check them out, and I suggest doing that at some point. I have a Patreon account which you can help support me making videos like this. I make probably quite a few, at least 2 videos on the Lost Mine of Phandelver every week, sometimes a little less, but there's quite a few of them. I do also have an affiliate link to the book depository and Amazon, where you buy stuff online and I get a small commission. That helps out as well. Now, remember, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And if you're really lucky, YouTube's notifications might actually work. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. For those of you who have questions, I'm going to go through the live chat and pull things apart as best I can. Now, I know a lot of people will be wondering, why did you even bother doing this? Because you covered all of this in part 1, Goblin Arrows. And I pretty much did. But I think my biggest problem is I had a bunch of questions come through that sort of indicated to me that people didn't fully understand what I had presented in the very first one, and therefore I needed to do it again. And I was all ready to do that. I was all ready to have one that was sort of very much about the very first session rather than running the encounter. But anyway, let us go through the chat very quickly. Hi Rich, how's it going? Let me just pull up my face, because I do actually have a camera for my face. And I might actually grab my glasses as well, because that might help, since my eyes are getting old. And it always helps to be able to see what you guys have written rather than struggle and have to move my head further towards the camera. That way I can actually stick myself in the center and I don't look like I'm sort of craning at the screen. Okay, all right, so let's flip it over and let's get over to the live chat. It should be flipping over now. Yeah, there we go. It should be over now. Okay, Eli, I've answered your question. Yes, well, Eli, I have actually done a lot of videos on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I have done a heap. I know I haven't done the video. I know there's a lot of people who want me to do the videos that show you the actual maps and encounters and sort of how they might interplay and work. Those videos are coming. They're just really time consuming and require a lot of money and effort on my part, and so I tend to go with the stuff that it's easier for me to do rather than harder. And hopefully those dungeon masters who have already run the very first session will have pulled out some really curly questions for me that I need to answer, things that their players tried to do or wanted to do that I can respond to. Okay, I was at Eli Wilder. I originally came for Horde of the Dragon Queen DM streams. Yes, I did. I did them a long time ago, didn't I? And I got to chapter or episode 4, and my experience with chapter 4 of Horde of the Dragon Queen was so unpleasant. I just couldn't stomach doing it again. I don't know that I will necessarily be quite as in depth if I ever did more of the Horde of the Dragon Queen. I'm much more likely to cover the last episode of Horde of the Dragon Queen, because episode 8 of Horde of the Dragon Queen is awesome. It's pretty much the only reason why I even cared about running the adventure in the first place. It was also the only real adventure other than the Lost Mine of Phandelver back then at that time. Okay. Alright. Yes, I'm not a strange person who doesn't respond to people. I do actually respond to people's questions and answers, and in the chat and in the comments section. Live chat is always better for me because I get it done right then and there. Dear Jesus, I've been missing some notifications from YouTube. Don't know why either. It's because it's YouTube. It's how it happens. Hydrokinesis. Oh, it's starting. Yes, that's right. It is starting. Okay. You don't need to be sorry. Hydrokinesis. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Okay, Chris is here. How's it going? I'm looking now. Do hashtag question so I can pick them out of the chat really quickly. If you super chat it, it'll pop up and I'll find that real fast as well. But you don't need a super chat. You can just go hashtag question. And to be honest, I probably get more if you join a Patreon page than you do a super chat. Anyway. Okay, so here we go. Deadman Fred TV. I love it. Deadman Fred TV. That's an awesome name. Running my second session this Wednesday. Okay, all right. How's it all going, by the way, Deadman Fred TV? I just wanted to say that word again. It was so much fun the first time, and the second time I just had to say it again. What's that, Eli? I don't want to fight the red brands. I don't know how YouTube didn't flag that word. Okay. But please don't swear in the live streams. It's not really a good idea. I did a video on the red brands. So the red brand ruffians, there's a video on that topic if you need advice or some help with that particular area. I am going to how can I deal with that? I'm just gonna remove the comment, mate. Okay, because it is just gonna get me flagged, and it's hard enough as a YouTube channel nowadays with YouTube the way it is, and they get upset about all sorts of things. And I want this to be able to be viewed by a lot of other people. Thank you, Eli. Right, so Dead Man Fred TV. I can't help myself. We've already sort of covered that in terms of balance in the game. So don't worry about if you've got more players. Just let it play out. It's always good to start running your... Look, one of the things I do with new players when I'm starting for the very first time is I will throw lots of really, really easy encounters at them. Things they steamroll through. And then I will slowly, as they get to grips with things, I will increase the difficulty. Patrick, this will get uploaded as a video. Yes, don't worry, the live stream will get uploaded as a video. And I know what you're talking about. Will I cut it down? So yes, I do. I cut down the live streams and release them anywhere from a week to a month later, except for the patrons who get access to the edited video much sooner than everybody else. Just a benefit of being a patron. So yes, you can be assured, Patrick, that I will cut the video down at some point and release it. 4 is perfect number. Yeah, in terms of players, 4 is a good number. There's nothing wrong with that. 3 is starting to get a bit dicey. And I wouldn't go with 2. That would be difficult. Yeah, I usually do. Yeah, I let YouTube do most of the work rather than trying to do it myself. Dear Jesus, Dead Man, after you go through the goblin arrow, they should give you an idea if you need balance. Yeah, well, you'll find the encounters after goblin arrows, the first encounter, are a lot easier. So if you're worried about your adventure being too hard because the first encounter was such a shock to the system, don't worry, because from then on out it should be a lot easier unless the players don't play it smart. That's the only thing I can say. And all right, so have I answered that? I've answered that. Okay, hello Richard. My players are about to enter Cragmore Hideout, okay, and then go to Phandelver. Can you cover everything about preparing both of these as a DM, even reading the adventure and guide? I feel not prepared enough. Okay, so Dear Jesus has given me some PDF maps of the Cragmore Hideout and a lot of the other locations. So what I'm going to do, and it won't happen too quickly because I need a bit of time. I need to cull through all the images, decide on which ones I want to print, then take them and get them printed out, and then I will lay them out and play out the scenario, not so much in terms of a combat encounter, but what I will do is I will show you the density and explain each situation and how it sort of interacts. Those could be quite long videos. That's the only warning I would have, because each location has up to 10 rooms or spaces, and so can be a bit complicated. So that will happen. I don't know that it's necessary. I guess what you're asking me for is to read out and how would you run the first part of the Cragmore Hideout. And essentially that starts on page 8. So I didn't really want to do that, but I suppose I can. I suppose I could just do like an introductory segment for just that, make it reasonably short, and then do a follow-up video and lay out the map for you as a separate video. Otherwise, there's too much to do. So, Richard, it's coming. I just don't know when. I'll do my best. I feel like covering Cragmore Hideout and the very first approach to it is probably a lot easier. It does sort of mean missing a couple of other bits and pieces, but I can do that if you would like. Dead Man Fred TV. I can't help myself. I still love saying that. I went through Goblin Arrows already, dear Jesus. The party had one player left, conscious. They probably would have died if the boss didn't run away. Well, that can happen. And you're talking about Clark. I'm assuming you're talking about the hideout in Clark. If you're talking about that one, that could. Clark is if he gets a good whack in, he can do a lot of damage and hurt the party pretty badly. Dear Jesus, this is actually very common at level 1. There are lots of things that can outright knock out or kill the PCs. Yes, once you get them to level 2, it's going to be a lot easier. But level 1 is always the hard yards. That's where you really have to be very careful. So one thing I will say to you as a dungeon master, whether you're new or experienced, if you're experienced, you're doing it your own way. But if you're new, drop clues, give them advice. You're not. It's not like you're playing chess where they are playing white and you are playing black. Okay, so that means you can say, look, doing that might be unwise. You might be better off to approach the cave and be sneaky and stealthy. You might want to send one person who's really good at it. Or if you're going to move up as a party to make sure that they aren't exposed to danger, then all of you make a group stealth check moving up to Cragmore Hideout. Or any location, doesn't matter what it is. I always try to emphasize to new players as a dungeon master, I want you to think about yourself as a SEAL team. You're like a SEAL team, the United States SEAL team, and you don't go in there guns a-blazing. The idea is to get out, in and out, unseen, achieve your goal, and that be it. Nothing else. If you can do it without causing any casualties, awesome. If you have to cause a few casualties along the way, do it silently, or as silently as possible. That is the smartest way to play the game, is be like a black ops team. Yes, Dead Man Fred TV. I still love saying that. Probably would require another video, but knowing what levels for specific dungeons would be really great, like Cragmore Hideout level 1, Cragmore Red Brand Hideout level 2, Agatha. Well, look, Agatha can be approached at any level because it's not a combat encounter. It is in fact a role play, and don't turn it into a combat encounter. Okay, Banshees, nothing to joke about. Those things can take out high level characters potentially. It's quite difficult because the DC is quite low, but they can really make a mess of a group. So don't turn that into a combat. But yes, I suppose I could do a video and talk about each location and what level is sort of appropriate. But you're not going to get, it's a sandbox, so you're not going to necessarily be able to sort of push your players without taking away a lot of their player agency and their choice making. So I don't really want to do that. If a lot of other people start saying, Fred, we want to know exactly what is the best level for a particular location, then yeah, I'll do the video. It wouldn't be hard for me to put the material together. To be honest, that would actually be quite easy. I need a drink of water. Oh, all right. If we get to the 1 hour mark, I'm stopping. Okay, no matter what. Okay, Anthony. Most level 1 characters are squishy, and goblins are actually very tough opponents if their skills and abilities are properly used. Yes. The goblin's nimble ability is often overlooked. I don't think a lot of people understand just how dangerous a goblin can be, particularly if you don't put them up close in melee. If you go from range and you go with hiding and shooting, then it can mess up any group pretty well. You're then your players will have to resort to readied actions when when the goblins reveal themselves by taking a shot at them. That's really the only way they're going to be able to take out the goblins otherwise. And unfortunately, that's sort of the situation that a level 1 character is going to face with the first encounter. Dear Jesus, Agatha, Coneberry, Wyventor, etc. would highly recommend minimum of level 3. Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about level 3 for Agatha, but the other ones, level 3, probably a good idea. I feel like the Red Brand hideout is more suitable for level 2. But as I said, you can't push them in a direction they don't want to go, right? James Bond. Oh man, I'm a fan of you, James Bond. If you're the same James Bond, Licensed to Kill, 007, I have all of your movies. I can't help myself. Just joking. I max characters. I'm not kidding about liking James Bond though. I max character hit points. You think maxing enemy hit points will balance out? Are you maxing the character's hit points each time they level? Because they should be getting maximum hit points for their character at level 1. That's just how it's set out. Unless, of course, you've decided to have them roll their hit points, which I don't recommend for new players. Okay, I don't recommend rolling dice because somebody's going to roll really low. And, if somebody rolls a 1, and they've got a low constitution modifier, then their character's going to be pin-cushioned probably by a goblin and instantly killed. They could wind up with like 2 hit points or 1 hit point, and it wouldn't take very much for a low-level enemy to finish them off and instantly kill them, and that would just suck. So, yeah, I wouldn't do maximum hit points for characters beyond level 1 because the player's characters will increase in power very quickly. Okay, I think we've covered James Bond. Paul, how's it going, Paul? If you max out enemies, use only the same amount as the PCs. Too many bad guys, quick death. Yeah, so Dear Jesus, thank you for the super chat. I'm getting to your question. Sorry, I'm working my way. You know me. I try to work through everybody's comment if there's something to respond to. Paul does make a good point. I do increase the hit points for enemies to their maximum, but only usually once the players reach a character level of 5. Because at level 5, the power increase is huge. It's massive. Okay, so Dear Jesus, let's get to you because you have commented, and then I'll go back to where I was, which I think is actually about to respond to one of your own comments. Hey Fred, can you post the encounter sheets for Broken Arrow for the new DMs in the room where you get a chance, when you get a chance? Yeah. Are you talking about those maps that you broke apart, Dear Jesus? I can do that. I think probably the best way for them to download them, though, is to go to my Facebook group and pluck them from there. So if you go to my Facebook group, I can download files onto there. I can do that. That's not a problem. If you're wanting the encounter maps for Cragmore Hideout, I can put them onto... Where can I put them onto? I think I can put them onto my Patreon page as a public file. So I could do that as well. I don't really want to put it in too many different locations that I don't already have set up. Otherwise, it's a bit of a drag. So yes, I can do that. No problem. You made them. Okay, Dear Jesus. Here we go. Wouldn't hurt, but sometimes you don't want to fight the fight to last too long. Otherwise, your party might burn through resources and abilities, healing potions or action surges, second wind, stuff like that. Yep. Look, my suggestion to you is if your goblins lose half their hit points, have them run away. Don't let them fight till they die. Have monsters run away. I've talked about this before in my monster tactics. Monsters should run away when they get badly hurt. Don't let them fight until the end, particularly if they have an opportunity to do so without being pin-cushioned from range fire. If they're in cover already, then just have them leave and that's it. Paul, what do you got here? Or could you have one single bad guy question? I'm not quite sure what you mean, Paul. Single enemies don't usually work very well in Dungeons and Dragons. It doesn't matter what version of the game it is. They usually get just pulverized. Everybody just focus fires, and because the enemy they're fighting, even legendary creatures get pulverized. So yeah, a single enemy is not usually necessarily a really good idea. But I mean, if you want to, you could. Dead Man Fred TV. My session 0 included a quest to help Gundren clear out his old warehouse in Neverwinter from a giant black spider. See, that's a really good. Dead Man Fred TV makes a good point. Get the players to have their first adventure with Gundren Rockseeker, because it makes a lot of sense, and it can be really simple. It doesn't have to be anything particularly hard. It might be just a single giant spider, or black spider in this case. Giant black spider. So pick something. My players asked Gundren would there be any more spiders? He. So in other words, they're looking to do more in the future, which is great. And then of course Gundren Rockseeker comes back and says, look, I have this supply, I've got this mine, I need to get the supplies there, will you help me? So that's a really good way of bringing them in. So they already have a connection with Gundren beyond just paying, getting a few coins for delivering the wagon to Phandelver. So really good advice there, mate. Asparagus Ash. I was taught how to count to potato, but sadly I've forgotten. Okay, I don't know. What did I even... I'm not sure what that means. I'm just confused now. Dear Jesus, if your party has no characters that can regain or give hit points, consider throwing in a few cure wounds potions. Yes. Look, see, there's a good point. Look, I would, if you're starting out and there is very few people in the party or group who are able to cast spells, just give everybody one healing potion. Just divvy it out. One healing potion. One, you don't have to give them multiple, but one will certainly get them through the very first part of the adventure, and then hopefully by then they have got a bit of cash, and they will have leveled up, and so things will change. Bromos Sunstar Ranger. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you. All right. It's amazing there's so many people in this room. Blacksmith Bench Studios. Ooh, interesting. Literally running right now for 2 players. Okay. A sorcerer and a ranger. They just got into Cragmore Cave. First encounter with the wolves. Knocked one player out and dropped the other to 2 hit points. Well, yes, but knocked out is not dead. And if they get dropped to 2 hit points, who cares? Look, they can take the opportunity to go and take a short rest and use some hit dice. My suggestion to you is, if you're running this with just 2 players, is give each of them an animal companion. And let the animal companion level up with them. It doesn't have any real significant personality to play out. And it's nice and simple. You just give them a really simple stat block for it. Pick a creature that seems suitable, that's sort of comparable in terms of hit points, and just level it up just like you would a character as they level up. And award experience points to the animal companion. You don't even have to use an animal companion. You could have a squire or retainer. But I feel like when people play Dungeons and Dragons, they often want to have like a pet, like a cat or a dog or a wolf or something like that. Just don't be giving them a baby dragon, because that's probably going to cause a lot of problems. Blacksmith Bench Studios. They made the plan to run back to Phandelver. Yep, well, which is fine. To seek help from a local or 2. Should I give them a couple of cell swords or... Yeah, you could. Why not? Give them some cell swords. I just said it. Or if they don't want to have cell swords, you could say, look, you can have a couple of animals that are yours that you can use in combat, and they just use them as tanks, basically. I would also advise you, if you're dealing with new players and you've only got 2, don't start at level 1. Give them level 2 characters and recommend that they multi-class so that they can get access to spells that allow them to heal themselves, whether that's to heal themselves or somebody else. That's a really good way of dealing with that situation. Okay, Ray Gun Factory. Oh, that's an interesting name. Hi, I'm about to run Lost Mine of Phandelver as part of a larger homebrew. I've got Gundren as a friend of the party. Okay, I would make his relationship much closer than that, but you can do it that way if you like. Just make sure he's a friend of a friend who's a really close friend of a friend, if you know what I mean. Is the book suggestion that the party know him just to keep him? Yeah, it's the motivation. Otherwise, why will they help him? I've done a video talking about who is Gundren Rockseeker and why they should help Gundren Rockseeker. Why help Gundren Rockseeker? I did a video on that, so I do talk about that and how to approach that. Make sure that there is a motivation. Otherwise, your players will have their characters go and do something completely different, and they will ignore the entire story utterly. And things will really be more complicated than you needed it to be. It's always good to have a really strong link and a strong hook. And Gundren has to be a strong hook because there's nothing else. Money is not good enough. Gold is not good enough as a motivator. And that is just my opinion. Okay. Deadman Fred TV. Thanks for answering questions and the great video. Other Fred, keep it up. Dear Jesus, I made enemy encounter sheets in folders with maps. Oh, okay. I'd forgotten about. Gosh, do I still have them? I may have seen them and I thought, what is this? And then deleted it. Oops. Enemy encounter sheets. I mean, I don't know that it's necessary. See, I don't want to do, and now there's only one reason why I don't want to present them to people, because the idea is that potentially a smart player can turn any combat encounter into either a situation that they flee from, they avoid and hide from, or they have a social interaction and they either trick, intimidate, or persuade them not to engage in a battle with them. And avoiding combat is actually a much smarter and more effective method, and you can still award experience points to players for doing that, because they have, as long as they haven't necessarily avoided the situation. But then again, they still had to make a stealth check to get past that situation. I would still award experience points. It's only when they start going back to try to polish off a group of goblins they have avoided by making a stealth check that picking up more experience points would seem a little bit too much like farming it. I just don't want to present everything as it's definitely going to be combat. And if I give people sheets, then they'll think, okay, it has to be combat. And that's not really what we're looking for. Blacksmith Bench Studios, great answer. Thanks very much. You are welcome. Bob Sagat. Question. Sorry I've taken so long to get to your question, Bob. What is the best number for running the adventure players-wise and hi Fred? Hi Bob. So here's my view. I feel like the adventure works best with a number that you can manage and the game can manage. And between 4 and 5 players is great. But you don't have the luxury sometimes of having the perfect number of players. And I suppose I need to do a video on how to deal with large groups. I did a video on how to deal with small groups, but it's probably gotten lost in the ether. It's starting to make me think that I might have to actually redo that video again, and maybe I should do it tomorrow. Small groups or large groups? Okay, start typing into the chat before I disappear. Do you want a video tomorrow on the Lost Mine of Phandelver talking about what level the party should be for the different locations in the adventure? Or and I need more than one person to tell me this. Do you want a video on how to deal with a small party in the adventure, or do you want a video on how to deal with a large party in the adventure? So now this is what you got to do. You got to say, I want a level dependent video on the different locations in the adventure, or I want a video on running a small group or running a large group. And that's the video I will do tomorrow. Why not? How hard can it be? It can't be that hard. It's not that hard. Dear Jesus, murder hobos 3 to 4, casual, casual 4 to 5. Laugh out loud is optimal. Yeah, 4 to 5 is optimal. Bob, a friend of yours told me to watch this. Very helpful. Thanks. You're welcome. Now I don't know which friend it is, but I'm glad he sent you to me. I don't know whether it's a he or a she. Ray Gun Factory. I could use a large party video. Okay. Save or die. Small party video. Your hats are awesome. Thank you very much. I've been told that I need to wear different hats. So, is that the? Yeah, that is. That's the top hat. So we'll stick it in. The problem is I don't use this one because it sort of pops out of the screen, and you can see why I wear the hats, right? Because there's not a lot going on up there. F Hubba, how do you deal with a small party? So we've got 2 for small party, and Jason, you're even G's. Even G's? I'm gonna lose my voice. If I don't stop shortly, I'm gonna lose my voice. So, it sounds like, but I haven't been confirmed, that people would like a small party video. Blacksmith Bench Studios. Definitely yes on the video about dealing with a small party. Okay, that did it. All right, so we got the 3 votes. It's done. I'll be talking about running a small party in the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And a lot of this will sort of play into anything, really. It doesn't really matter whether it's the Lost Mine of Phandelver or anything else, but I think I will target it at the Lost Mine of Phandelver for this situation. Okay? Bob. He's a gaming buddy of mine called Tarmanda. I'm not sure who that is. Okay. Dear Jesus, gold bat top hat is classic, Fred. I feel like it is too. That's why I keep wearing it. It's also more comfortable. J Mark, love your videos. A video about Coneberry would be great too. Look, I do have a video on Agatha, but do you want a video on how to run the Coneberry encounter? If that's what you're after, I suppose I could do that. F Hubba wants large groups. Okay, well, we're doing the small groups for now, and I'm going to go because I'm going to be back tomorrow anyway to talk about the stuff. You're going to get me again. I've got to stop talking, and I've got to prepare for another video because I'm doing. It's about just over an hour from now. I'm going to be doing Dark Gifts for the Curse of Strahd. I said I would do it. It's time. So that's what's going to happen. So thank you for everybody who showed up. And I am going to start trucking off. So have a good night, good day, good morning, good afternoon. Look after your family and your friends. Don't do anything stupid or foolish. And I will see you next time. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s.